Electric cars, they feel like they should be the future. But if we're being honest, they're not quite the present for most of us, are they? So why haven't they completely taken over our roads? We're about to dig into that very question, and you'll find out how a surprisingly simple philosophy might just be the key to unlocking an all-electric world.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The technology is here, the environmental benefits seem pretty obvious, so what's the holdup? We always hear about things like cost and range and where to charge them, and it turns out all those problems are part of a story that actually got started over 100 years ago.
So, to really get it, we've got to look back at the history, because it shows this fascinating paradox. See, the electric car isn't some newfangled invention. It's an old one that's basically been waiting in the wings for its big moment for over a century.
And get this, electric vehicles were actually invented way back in the 1830s, long before gasoline cars even existed. By the early 1900s, they were having what you might call a golden age. So what went wrong? Well, the exact same thing that's a challenge today: cost. In 1912, an EV would set you back $1,750, while a brand new Ford Model T was just $550. I mean, it was more than 3 times the price, so yeah, no wonder the gas engine won that battle. It really wasn't until the late 90s, when environmental concerns started popping up again, that cars like the Toyota Prius brought electric power back into the mainstream conversation.
So that brings us to today. How do we finally break that cycle of EVs being too expensive? Well, the potential answer is kind of surprising. It's not about adding more fancy tech or more features. It's about radical simplicity, an idea called frugal innovation. And its whole philosophy is about doing more with less. Basically, what frugal innovation is all about is a total shift in how you think. Instead of the usual more for more, adding features and jacking up the price, it's about stripping a product down to what's absolutely essential. The goal is to make something affordable and accessible to everyone, delivering huge value without compromising on what really matters. And what's really cool is this isn't just some new corporate buzzword cooked up in a boardroom. This whole philosophy of doing more with less is a global thing. In India, they call it jugaad, which is like a clever, improvised solution. In China, you've got shanzai, and in Japan, it's setsuyaku, the idea of being economical and not wasteful. It's a universal human instinct, right? To innovate when you've got constraints. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. In fact, the term frugal engineering actually came from inside the auto industry itself. Carlos Ghosn, who is the CEO of Renault-Nissan, he coined it because he saw this philosophy as the only way to build cars for new, growing markets where people were really conscious about cost. But here's the thing. This is not just about being cheap or random cost-cutting. It's a whole strategy, a different way of looking at a problem. You've got principles like do more with less and aim for simplicity, which make perfect sense. But it also includes ideas like involve the marginal population, designing things for everyone, not just the people at the top end of the market. It's all about turning your limitations into your biggest advantages. Now, this idea of doing more with less actually has some pretty deep roots. It builds on an incredibly powerful philosophy that was perfected decades ago in Japanese manufacturing, which really laid all the groundwork for this kind of frugal thinking. At the absolute heart of Japanese production is this concept called kaizen, which basically just means continuous improvement. And its main mission in life, to relentlessly hunt down and eliminate muda, which is the Japanese word for waste, in every single part of the process. And when they talk about waste, believe me, they mean everything. We're talking about making too much stuff, parts or people just waiting around, unnecessary transportation, carrying extra stock, even wasted motion on the assembly line. By going after these 7 wastes with this relentless focus, the whole system becomes incredibly efficient. It's the perfect foundation for frugal innovation. Okay, so let's bring this all back to the car. How does all this stuff, frugal innovation, lean manufacturing, how does it actually help build an electric vehicle that you and I could afford? And right here, this is where you see the EV's secret weapon. Just look at the insane difference in complexity. By its very nature, an EV is just a fundamentally simpler machine from the get-go. Think about your standard gasoline car for a second. It's been called the industry of industries, for good reason. It is a ridiculously complex beast, made up of roughly 30,000 individual parts. I mean, everything from pistons and spark plugs to fuel pumps and exhaust systems. Now, an EV comes along and just slashes that number by more than half.
taking it down to around 11,000. Right off the bat, you have way fewer things to design, to buy, and to put together. That massive simplification, that's step number one, and it's a huge step towards making a car more affordable. But for years, there was one big catch. All of that beautiful simplicity was kind of canceled out by one giant, super expensive component, the battery. It was the single biggest reason EVs stayed so expensive. But that barrier is finally coming down, and it's coming down fast. And this is the real game changer. Just look at these numbers. Between 2010 and 2016, the cost of an EV battery pack just fell off a cliff. It dropped by 75%. This is the single most important factor that is making affordable EVs even possible. And as that cost keeps falling, the price gap between electric and gas cars is closing really fast. And it's not just about the battery either. This frugal mindset means making the entire car more efficient. So automakers are aggressively lightweighting their vehicles, using advanced materials like carbon fiber and aluminum. Because hey, a lighter car needs a smaller, cheaper battery to go the same distance. See? It all works together. Another big win for affordability. So, what does all this add up to for the future of driving? Well, when you combine a much simpler machine with plummeting battery costs and just plain smarter design, the impact on the market is going to be absolutely massive. If you want a little sneak peek of what happens when EVs get more accessible, all you have to do is look at China. It's become the biggest EV market in the world. As soon as the prices started to fall, registrations just exploded. I mean, they went up almost 5 times in just 2 years. This is like a preview of what could happen everywhere else. The road ahead is looking very electric. Projections are showing up to 70 million EVs on the road worldwide by 2025. We're also seeing this really cool thing called reverse diffusion, where these clever, low-cost ideas from one market start to spread and benefit everyone. And a huge driver for all of this will be the silver market, an aging population that's going to demand transportation that is simple, accessible, and affordable. And all that brings us right back to our big question. For 100 years, the electric car was this promise that was always just over the horizon, held back by complexity and cost. But maybe the solution was never about adding more. Maybe it was about taking away. By embracing this simple, powerful idea of doing more with less, we might finally be making that electric promise a reality for everyone.